This morning, I would like to speak to you from the topic, the way of peace. And the scripture is taken from 2 Kings 6, verses 8 to 23. 2 Kings 6, verses 8 to 23. And I'll read for you. Once when the king of Syria was warring against Israel, he took counsel with his servants, saying, "At such and such a place shall be my camp." But the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, "Beware that you do not pass this place, for the Syrians are going down there." And the king of Israel sent to the place about which the man of God had told him. Thus he used to warn him, so that he saved himself there more than once or twice. And the mind of the king of Syria was greatly troubled because of this thing, and he called his servants and said to them, "Will you not show me who of us is for the king of Israel?" And one of his servants said, "None, my lord, O king, but Elisha the prophet who is in Israel tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom." And he said, "Go and see where he is, that I may send and seize him." It was told to him, "Behold, he is in Dothan." So he sent there horses and chariots and a great army, and they came by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God rose early in the morning and went out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. And the servant said, "Alas, my master, what shall we do?" He said, "Do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Then Elisha prayed and said, "O Lord, please open his eyes that he may see." So the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And when the Syrians came down against him, Elisha prayed to the Lord and said, "Please strike this people with blindness." So he struck them with blindness in accordance with the prayer of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek." And he led them to Samaria. As soon as they entered Samaria, Elisha said, "O Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see." So the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. As soon as the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, "My father, shall I strike them down? Shall I strike them down?" He answered, "You shall not strike them down. Would you strike down those whom you have taken captive with your sword and your bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink, and go to their master." So he prepared for them a great feast, and when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. And the Syrians did not come again on raids into the land of Israel. The way of peace. Now, driving is one thing that many of us in here have in common. All of us? Or most of us. But one thing is that the approach that we take to driving differs from person to person. And I'm sure you'd agree that sometimes the driving experience is a bit like Clash of the Titans, you know? Whether it's something you're a part of or something that you simply witness on your travels as a driver. "Oh, he cut me up, so as soon as the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to cut him up. Oh, he or she wound down the window, had a right go at me, laid into me, so you know what, I'm going to blow my horn and I'm going to shout back at them." A game of tit for tat. But when rage is simply compounded with more of the same, there's no peace. There can be no peace. Now, from the start of the verses we see a plot revealed. The king of Syria warred against Israel. He sat down, he took counsel with his servants, with his people. He made a plan. So they were planning an ambush. But the ambush wasn't just an opportunity that presented itself, like it just happened to fall into their hands that, oh, we're in an area, we happen to come across the people who we want, let's get them because we have the upper hand. It was calculated, it was something they sat down, thought about, way in advance. The Syrians clearly, with this plan, with this calculation, with this strategy that they were coming up with, meant real harm to the Israelites. And the fact that they planned it and sat down, and it showed the depth that they went to ensure that they got it right. Sometimes if you think of, you may go away on a holiday, and it's completely different, but you go away on a holiday, somewhere you may not have gone before. Beforehand, you don't just say, you know what, when we get there, we'll figure out what we're going to do. Beforehand, you may say, okay, these are the excursions that we're going to do. This day, we're there for a week. Day 1, we're going to do this. Day 2, we're going to do this. You map out, your whole holiday, your whole experience. Some people may not, but I know some do. So you plan it all out, every small detail, because you want the holiday to go well. You want it to go perfectly. Similarly, they did this. Their plan, which was for evil, they planned it to the very detail to ensure they got it right. Why? Because they were determined not to fail. Once the king of Syria was warring, he took counsel with his servants, saying, at such and such a place shall be my camp. Now, some people deliberately intend to destroy you. Let's be honest. There are people like that. They seem friendly, maybe not friends or associates, but they come across okay. They're not too bad. Don't really bother you. They seem pleasant, but behind your back, behind closed doors, they're subtly planning your destruction. But here we see from verse 9, the ambush that they planned was averted. But the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, beware that you do not go down to this place. You can imagine that the Syrians could have spent hours, maybe even days, planning and mapping out every move just to make sure everything was right. And they were possibly amused, sat there laughing to themselves. You know what? The Israelites don't even know that we're coming. They have no idea. They won't even see us coming. And you know what? They didn't. The Israelites had no idea what was happening behind closed doors. But note the but that starts in verse 9. At such and such a place shall be my camp, but the man of God sent word to the king. Yes, they planned, but there was about to be a change of events. Yes, they believed they were onto a winner. We're going to get them. But God was not allowing that plan to come into play. God revealed the intentions of the Syrians to the Israelites. And when people are out to plot against you, although you may not know it, God will reveal it. God is in your corner as he was in theirs. He sent the man of God to send word to the king, they're coming for you. This is what they intend to do. And amongst the Syrian council, there must have been wise men. The king will surround himself with people or who will help him to carry out his role effectively. If you think of our prime minister, they've got a cabinet of people, of wise men of strategy, good with logistics and planning, people that you can set over certain areas. You've got people in education, you've got people in health. Unfortunately, the prime minister isn't going to know everything. He's going to need support, he's going to need help to make sure that he can do what he does as best as possible. And the Syrian council must have been like this, wise men. And likewise, men in the council of the king of Israel must have been the same. He would have had similar people to help him. Yet, in all of their wisdom, they didn't expect the enemy's next move. What am I trying to say? Your years of experience, your knowledge of others, those who are for and those who are against you, your abilities that may work in other areas in your favor, may not have the same effect in ones like this. Unfortunately, There's some things that your wisdom, that your experience, that your knowledge won't tell you. The plan wasn't revealed, as we see here, to the Israelites. It was revealed to Elisha. The man of God sent word to the king. God told Elisha. Then what? Elisha told the king. So from this, we have to assume that the Israelites had a good relationship with the prophet Elisha. Once he got word from God, he went straight to the king. And for us, it's important for us to have godly friends, to surround ourselves with godly people. Not only that, but to maintain good relationships with them. No matter how saved you are, no matter how long you've been a Christian, no matter what vibrant church you go to and the Spirit's moving, God's speaking, sometimes you may need someone else to open your eyes to something that's going on. And Elisha told them what was going on. Not only did he say, they're planning against you, he told them the specific place. Don't go down to this, such and such a place. Why? Because the Syrians are going there. They'll be waiting there for you. And sometimes God may reveal not only the plot of your enemies, but even the circumstance that it's going to unfold in. This is how they're going to make it happen. This is where it's going to happen. Even the place you may be made aware of. What do we see here? The importance of taking advice. When Elisha told the king, he didn't say, you know what, lovely, go about your business and leave it at that and got on. He listened. And we also need to listen to people, but not in ignorance. Yes, listen, but not in ignorance. Now, I was told of an incident where one Christian told another Christian, don't go for an operation. There's an operation that you're being presented with. Don't go for this operation. And it wasn't just any little, minor surgery. It was something that was so important that if not done, could cause serious injury or death. And the one being given the advice or told not to do this was advised by someone else that they need to go and check out the credentials, the reputation of this person before making that serious decision, a decision that will be life-changing. Now, the king we see here sent someone to check out what Elisha was saying. And the person was able to confirm it to be true. And then the king took action. So before acting on information brought to us, sometimes we need to check things out. And it doesn't always mean that you're doubtful, but just exercising a bit of wisdom. But, no, I said sometimes, because on the other hand, there are some things that you just need to believe. You just need to move in obedience to God. But then you could ask, okay, well, you're telling me I should check things out. But then you're saying, actually, other times you should just move, you should just do it, you should just believe. How do I determine what I need to check out and what I don't? First of all, what's the severity of the situation? Is it a life or death thing? And also, who gave the word? Where did you get the information from? Who's the source? What is the source? Have they been proven to be true in the past? Is it a reliable source? Now, Elisha's reputation, he was the man who gave the word to the king, had spread beyond Israel, and he was even known to his enemies. The Syrian servant we see told the king of Syria, this man Elisha, this man, he's in Israel. You see the very things that you speak in your bedroom, in your private place, that you believe, no one ain't even going to hear that. It's almost like we're at home, I'm at home, you're all in your other homes on the other side of Birmingham. I'm at home, my bedroom door's closed, and I'm whispering things to myself. As far as I'm concerned, that's a safe place. No one ain't hearing it and that I'm saying in there. That's my zone. It's protected. And the king of Syria would have thought, in his kingdom, in his palace, or even if it was in his room, in that place where they were plotting and planning, apart from the people in here, no one ain't going to know what's going on. No one ain't going to know the words that I speak. But the servant said, and I'll read it for you, because the king of Syria got angry and started to believe, actually, you know what, someone's a sellout in here, because how would they know not to go down to this place unless one of you told them? Someone must have told them, because no one can hear what's going on. No one's going to know what's going on apart from those involved. The servant said, there's a prophet who is in Israel that tells the king the words that you speak in your bedroom. Now, he may not necessarily know that, but the words that he used almost like just explained how he saw Elisha, what he knew of Elisha. So he was clearly known to be a true prophet, not only to those who he gave word to and was in relationship with, but even to the enemies. So there must have been something that happened in the past that this servant was aware of, a word that Elisha may have given to someone else that he saw come to pass, and he passed that on to the king. And we see here that listening to Elisha saved them. In the latter clause of verse 10, thus he used to warn him, so that he saved himself there more than once or twice. Obedience to God's instruction can save us from significant harm. Sometimes things may happen to us because, we don't listen. Someone's come to us with a word, we fob them off, we brush them off. And godly people, not just anyone, let me emphasize, godly people come to us with advice, come to us with instruction, and we don't listen. Then we get upset. Then we get frustrated when it all goes wrong, but we didn't listen. We start to complain and we start to argue. Where was God when this was happening or that was happening? Forgetting that we had someone advise us, someone instruct us, that we brushed off. But that wasn't the case for the king of Israel. He sent someone to check. He acted on it. They didn't go. They obeyed the word of God. And we too need to be obedient. We don't know what it could save us from. We don't know what's down the road. And it may not even come with such clarity, but God will save us. But second, we see the plotter's reaction to what had happened. He was troubled. And the mind of the king, verse 11, and the mind of the king of Syria was greatly troubled because of this thing, because of what the servant had told him. When we hear from God and we obey him, we anger, frustrate, and trouble our enemies, those who plot against us. Everything the king of Syria had planned, it failed. His well-calculated plan, everything that he had worked out and rejoiced in advance over, crumbled. When we hear from God and we obey, we frustrate those who plot against us. What the plan won't work, it will fail. Why? Because God has already stepped in and warned us. And when we obey, we avert that. But also we see in the latter part of verse 11 that he was suspicious, which is what I mentioned earlier. Will you not show me who of us is for the king of Israel? He became suspicious of those in his own camp. Someone selling me out, like I said. One of you in here must have said something. How else would he know? Sometimes when God's working, your enemy will become so disheartened and confused. They won't know what to do, where to turn. They start turning on their own. Obedience to God throws your enemy's camp into confusion. It distorts their thinking, their plotting. They won't know what to do. Everything's turned upside down. The very thing that looked like it was foolproof, there's no way this is going to fail, crumbles. But also we see that the plotter, the king of Syria, he was deceptive. After the servant told him about Elisha, he said, okay, all right, go and find where this man is. Where is he? Go and find where he is so I can, get him and seize him. Probably just put him away somewhere so he can't be telling my business, basically. That's what it sounds like. And it reminds me of the story of King Herod. When he told the wise men, go and fetch the child. Why? Because I want to worship him too. Herod didn't want to worship the child. Why? The first plan he had failed. The first plan was, let me go out and find all the children under a certain age, annihilate them. Why? Because no one ain't going to rise up and be king over me. Annihilate them. That plan failed. Didn't work. The child was still born. He was worshipped. He couldn't stop the plan. He was angry. He was troubled. My plan has failed. How has it failed? There's no way this child can still be alive. The child was alive. So the second attempt was, fetch the child. I want to worship him too. Here's my second chance. And returning to the king of Syria, even against his own, he continued in deception. Go and see where he is so that I may send for him. But his true intention was for harm. It wasn't just, we're going to have a little chat. I'm going to say to him, please stop telling people what I'm going to do. Or actually, I'll just lock him away somewhere. No, he intended harm. And we also see, in his reaction, he unleashed his army. In verse 14, he sent their horses and chariots and a great army. He's in Dothan. Okay, I'll go and get him, just so I can speak to him. For one man, he sent chariots, a great army, it says here, and they surrounded the city. To surround a city, there has to be a lot of people. Think, to get an army to surround Birmingham, which is a city. We're not the biggest city, but you'd need a big army. He sent so many people that they surrounded the city. It shows that he went to greater lengths for this second attempt. Why? I am not going to fail this time. I failed first. I'm not going to fail this time. He was determined to make sure that Elisha was destroyed. And sometimes you need to be careful of the mild words, the kind words that people speak. Oh yeah, I just want to have a chat with them. We'll sort it out. It's okay. But under it lays deception and hatred. And their hatred may be so great that they pull out all the stops to ensure that they take you out this time. But again, God, we see the prophet was ringed. In verses 15 to 17, first of all, the first thing we see here was the servant's sight. When the servant of the man of God rose early in the morning and went out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. And the servant said, alas, my master, what shall we do? What happened? He saw the army. He could only see the army. He could only see what was set against them, but couldn't see anything positive about the situation. Now, I can speak on my own experience in my first few months on intensive care. And if I'm totally honest, has been very easy for me to pick out the things that haven't gone right, the negatives, what I'm not able to do. I can re-list without thinking too hard, but I can't as easily, as readily reel a list of the positive things. So my eyes are so fixed on the can'ts that although there are cans, I haven't necessarily been able to see those and point those out as much as the can'ts, as much as the negative things. And it was similar here. There was positive, he was the servant of the man of God. They know, they serve the Almighty, the living God. That has never changed. And I'm sure he would have been well aware of that. But all he could see at that time, forget that. He's forgot he was serving the man of God. He's forgot, all about all of that stuff. There's an army surrounding us. My master, what are we going to do? This is it. We're finished. What's your focus on? Sometimes all we see is the negative as opposed to the positive. But on the flip side here, we see the prophet's side. Elisha said, "Do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them." I can almost see it in my mind. The servants running in like, "Elisha, look around, what are we going to do?" Relax. We've got more with us. We're all right. And when you're all, riled up and anxious, and then someone comes with a response like that, it's almost like, hold on, can you not see what I can see? Are you blind? What do you mean? How can you tell me to relax? They're coming for us. They're surrounded. There's nowhere we can go. Elisha said, there are more than with us than those who are with them. So do not be afraid. Relax, chill, calm down, stop jumping about. It's okay. Don't fret. His attitude and his reaction was the polar opposite to his situation. He was calm, he was confident, and he had reassuring words for his servant, even in the midst of adversity. What's your reaction and your attitude when you're faced with what you perceive to be danger for you? How do you respond? The servant, he was worried, he was anxious, he was fearful. But Elisha, we see, Elisha prayed. Verse 17, then Elisha prayed and said, "O Lord, please open his eyes that he may see." Why was Elisha able to respond like that? Chilled, calm. One, because of the relationship that he had with God, the confidence that he had in God. And he was able to see beyond the obvious, to see beyond the natural. And sometimes we have to pray for others to see what we can't see. Or, on the flip side, others may need to pray for us to see what they can see. We may be the anxious ones, or you may be the calm one. Sometimes people react in a certain way in certain situations because they don't see beyond the natural. They don't see beyond the obvious. They're erratic or we're erratic. They're fearful or we're fearful, anxious. But once he saw the chariots of fire, his attitude completely changed. The once anxious, scared, fearful, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do," guy, turned into, "Okay, we're okay. We're all right." So the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. He prayed, "God, please open his eyes." His eyes were opened. So once he saw that, you can imagine, thank God, we're all right. We're actually okay. So my question to you is, are your spiritual eyes open? Or do you need to ask God to help you see beyond the immediate threat? Have you stopped and recognized the presence of God? And not only that, but the height of his protection. It wasn't just a couple, I'm just going to send a couple people out to help you. The mountain was surrounded. The mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around. So in this, we can be assured that God protects his people. There's a covering that's provided, and we need to be aware of this. Even when on the outside, it appears that we're overpowered, we're overwhelmed, and you know what? The odds are against us. There's no way out. Behind the scenes, we have protection. The plotters were redirected. Here we see the power of prayer. After opening the eyes of the servant, Elisha didn't stop praying then. Continued. Elisha asked God, strike them with blindness. Strike the Syrians with blindness. And when the Syrians came down against him, Elisha prayed, verse 18, to the Lord and said, please strike this people with blindness. So he struck them with blindness in accordance to the prayer of Elisha. Prayer is important, especially when we're under attack. And sometimes the problem is we're not praying. He could have asked for anything. Look, God intervened, and Elisha knew that God would intervene, so he could have asked for absolutely anything. But here we see that the tide changed. The army, who were once a great threat, were paralyzed. He asked for them to be struck with blindness, with blindness, and God completely immobilized them. And here we learn that we can be specific about what we're asking God. We don't need to be so vague. But in our request, we aren't to ask for destruction. We aren't to ask for the worst. When you pray, yes, God will intervene, and you may even find that the very people that came against you are now subjected to you. God is able to bring your enemy right down. Whatever great army, whatever legion or people they come with, whatever group of intimidation they come with, God can bring them right down and give you the upper hand. The Syrians then became the vulnerable ones. That great army that surrounded the city became vulnerable. And sometimes when the enemy's eyes are opened, it's too late. He struck them with blindness. God struck them with blindness. And Elisha was then able to redirect them. And he was like, you know what? I know who you're looking for, but you're in the wrong place. But I'll take you to them. I'll take you where you need to go. And took them to Samaria. So once their eyes were open, they saw where they had been brought to. Elisha said, this is not the way, and this is not the city, but follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek. And he led them to Samaria. Samaria, which was in the heart of Israel. So when you're about to ambush a community, a group of people, you're on the outskirts, because you've got the advantage, and you can come at them from all angles. No one ain't going to come from behind, because you're at the greater surrounding point, so you can just move in on them, and you know they're centered. But Elisha brought them into the midst of the heart of Israel, and then their eyes were opened, but it was too late. They saw where they were, and it was too late, and you can just imagine how they felt. They thought, yes, they were motivated, and they knew what they were going to do. The plan was being put into action, and everyone knew what they were going to do, knew how they were going to do it. They were excited because, as far as they're concerned, we already know that we're going to take them out. Their eyes were opened, and they look around, and they're the ones that are surrounded. Those that were initially in pursuit became the ones to surrender. Here we see the prophet's response from verse 21. As soon as the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, my father, shall I strike them down? So the king of Israel was like, okay, they came for me, now I've got them, should I take them out? Because now we've got the upper hand. But Elisha said, no. Look at the response that Elisha gave. Because this even threw me off when I was reading. He answered, you shall not strike them down. Would you strike down those whom you have taken captive with your sword and your bow? But it gets better. Don't just not strike them down. Set bread and water. Set bread and water before them, let them eat and go on their way. Don't kill them. Don't do what others may do if they were in your situation. Instead, feed them, water them, and say, you know what? Now you're full. Go on your merry way. Who does that? Who to the enemy? And it wasn't just any, as I would say, any dibby food, any little bread and water that he gave. A great feast was set before them. They must have ate till their bellies were full. He prepared for them a great feast, verse 23. And when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. What do we learn here? When we've got the upper hand, we shouldn't use it to wrong those who have wronged us. The very people that plotted, schemed, planned, calculated, were rejoicing in us failing. We're rejoicing in us being overcome. Now we're above them. Now they're vulnerable. Now they're surrendered to us. But don't wrong them. Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years. That's the whole of my life in some months. 27 years. But when he was released and he became prime minister, he's now got the upper hand. He's in charge. He's the man in charge. He didn't take revenge. Instead, he offered peace and reconciliation. He even invited his jailer to his inauguration. And this quote from Nelson Mandela that I'll read, I think Bill Clinton was asking him about the whole situation and him being released, and when he returned to the cell, asked him, like, do you not feel hate? And he said, I am old enough to tell the truth. I felt hatred and fear, but I said to myself, if you hate them now you're out, you will still be their prisoner. I wanted to be free, so I let it go. Is there something that you can let go of for the sake of peace? And for the sake of your own freedom? Romans 12:21 reads, do not be overcome by evil, but what? Overcome evil with good. Don't pay wrong for wrong. Doesn't put you in a good position. Overcome evil with good. Then what do we see here? After the feast, after sending them away back to their master, peace is restored. The latter part of verse 23. They went away, and the Syrians did not come again on raids into the land. The good treatment of Elisha brought about a complete change in the enemy. The ones that they were bent on getting them, on capturing them, of taking control, they didn't come again. They didn't raid the place again. A war was averted. How? Simply out of goodness. The verse ends saying they didn't come again. They came no more. And what we see here is that by things being done the godly way, we can avert a lot of conflict. Not just now, not just tomorrow, not just this week, but even in the future. Peace is restored. For us, the way of peace is, as Christians, to faithfully follow Christ's example. Christ laid before us the way of peace. We saw how he responded to those who were against him, still showed love. And his example of how to treat our enemies is seen in the verses that we've read. How should we treat our enemies? We should overcome evil by doing good. May God bless his word.